Good morning, everyone. Uh, Virgo, time creates false securities. We assume tomorrow mirrors today, that opportunities remain static, that windows stay open indefinitely. But some windows have closing mechanisms. We can't see hinges that swing shut according to schedules we weren't given access to, and right now, one of those mechanisms might be engaging. What's narrowing here requires your immediate attention. Deadlines exist in forms beyond dates circled on calendars. They live in energetic thresholds, moments when certain choices become unavailable not because someone revoked them, but because conditions that made them possible simply dissolved. And you could be approaching one of those invisible boundaries where hesitation transforms from caution into permanent loss. What I'm picking up on isn't meant to trigger panic, but it is meant to interrupt complacency because complacency assumes infinite time, and that assumption might be costing you something irretrievable right now. Let me be direct about what very little time could mean. It might reference an opportunity with expiration embedded in its nature. Someone offering something, their attention, their forgiveness, their partnership, their resources, but not indefinitely. They haven't announced a deadline because they themselves might not know when their patience or availability will simply evaporate, but evaporate it will. Hold on, let's sit with this for a moment. Here's what people misunderstand about timing. They think it's about convenience, finding the perfect moment when all variables align favorably. But perfect moments are myths. What exists instead are adequate moments that become perfect retroactively when we choose them. And right now, an adequate moment might be presenting itself. Not ideal, not comfortable, not perfectly timed, according to your preferences, but adequate, workable, sufficient. And waiting for ideal might mean missing adequate entirely, then looking back years from now, wondering why you didn't act when action was still possible. That's the regret I'm sensing potential for. What opportunity have you been postponing that might not wait much longer? Let me tell you what else little time left could reference. A decision window closing. Maybe you're being given choice right now between paths, between people, between versions of your future. And that choice feels overwhelming, so you're delaying, waiting for more clarity, hoping the decision becomes obvious. But sometimes decisions clarify only after being made, not before. And the window where you get to choose might be shrinking rapidly. Soon, circumstances might choose for you through your inaction, defaulting you into whatever outcome results from non decision. Is that the outcome you want? Or would you prefer active agency in determining what comes next? Here's what I'm also sensing is less than hash zero. 5 hash is greater than. Someone's patience might be depleting, not dramatically, they haven't issued ultimatums or made threats, but internally they could be reaching their limit with waiting, with ambiguity, with investment that doesn't feel reciprocated, with extending themselves while you remain non committal. And when patience runs out, it doesn't refill. People don't typically announce this is your last chance before they actually withdraw. They just quietly stop offering chances, close doors, Redirect their energy toward recipients who demonstrate appreciation through action, not just words or intentions. You might be on the verge of that withdrawal. Without realizing it, let's talk about what creates urgency in relationships or opportunities. Usually, it's accumulated disappointment reaching critical mass. Someone has extended grace repeatedly, given you space, respected your timeline, believed your soon and eventually promises. But grace isn't infinite. And if you've been receiving grace without converting it into action, without honoring it through reciprocal effort, that grace could be in its final installments. Not because the person became cruel or impatient, but because self preservation demanded they stop investing where returns weren't materializing. Are you taking someone's patience for granted? What I'm picking up on about your role here, you might be operating from scarcity thinking disguised as abundance thinking, believing that because something exists today, it'll exist tomorrow, that opportunities and people remain available indefinitely simply because they haven't explicitly stated otherwise. But availability isn't permanent. It's conditional on factors beyond your awareness or control. Someone's emotional capacity, their life circumstances shifting, their priorities reorganizing, external pressures you know nothing about creating urgency on their end that doesn't match your leisurely timeline. And that mismatch could cost you. How would you handle discovering you'd waited too long? Let's see what else needs addressing. I'm sensing that some of you know exactly what this is about. You don't need interpretation because the urgency is already obvious. You've just been avoiding acknowledging it, hoping that ignoring the ticking clock will somehow stop time or extend deadlines through sheer denial. But denial doesn't manipulate reality. It just postpones collision with reality until circumstances force confrontation. And forced confrontations typically offer fewer options than proactive ones: less dignity, less control, less capacity to shape outcomes favorably. You still have some control now. But that control might be evaporating faster than you realize. Here's what very serious implies. This isn't about missing a minor opportunity or disappointing someone casually connected to your life. The stakes are substantial. What's at risk matters deeply to your future, to your relationships, to your sense of integrity or alignment. And high stakes demand proportional response. You can't approach serious situations with casual energy and expect favorable outcomes. Seriousness requires matching. Seriousness, focused attention, decisive action, willingness to prioritize what matters, even when that prioritization costs something. Are you treating this situation with the gravity it deserves? Or are you still operating from the assumption that everything will work out somehow without your active participation? What I'm also picking up, fear might be the primary obstacle preventing action. Not lack of desire or unclear intentions, but paralysis born from anxiety about making wrong choices or inadequate ones. So you freeze, hoping clarity will descend and make the path obvious. But clarity rarely precedes action. It follows it You move, then understand why you moved. You choose, then discover whether you chose well. Waiting for certainty before acting ensures you'll never act because certainty about outcomes doesn't exist before those outcomes manifest. Move despite uncertainty, or lose the opportunity to move at all. Let me tell you what happens when time runs out. Not catastrophically necessarily, but definitively. Doors lock, options vanish. The particular configuration of circumstances that made something possible simply ceases to exist. And you're left with different options, maybe worse, maybe just different, but never that specific one again. Because some opportunities are singular, they don't cycle back around. Don't offer second chances dressed as first ones. They appear once in one form under one set of conditions, and either you meet them or you don't. This could be one of those, and if it is, later equals never. Here's something else I'm sensing. Your intuition has probably been signaling urgency already, that low grade anxiety, that nagging feeling, that sense of, I should probably handle this, that you keep dismissing or rationalizing away. That's not paranoia, that's wisdom. Your deeper self recognizing time sensitivity before your conscious mind accepts it. And continuing to override that intuition in favor of comfort or convenience is essentially choosing to learn through loss rather than through proactive engagement. Do you really want loss to be your teacher here? What would acting immediately look like? Let's talk about what immediate action might require discomfort, certainly, conversations you've been avoiding, decisions you've been postponing, vulnerability you've been protecting against, risks that feel disproportionate to your current sense of readiness. But readiness is overrated. Most significant actions happen before we feel ready. We act, then become adequate to the action through the process of acting. Waiting to feel ready ensures remaining unprepared indefinitely because readiness develops through doing, not before it. So do the uncomfortable thing now, before time makes it impossible. Here's what I want you to understand as I close this reading. Urgency isn't manipulation, it's information, data about the temporary nature of certain possibilities. And receiving that information doesn't obligate specific action, but it does obligate conscious choice. You can choose to act despite discomfort, or choose to wait and accept whatever consequences waiting produces. Both are valid, but only one is honest with itself about what's at stake. So assess truthfully. What's the actual cost of waiting versus the actual cost of acting? Not the imagined catastrophes fear invents, but the real, tangible consequences each path produces. Then choose consciously, with full awareness, without lying to yourself about having more time than you do, because you might not, and discovering that too late serves no one, especially not you. Thank you for being here. If this resonated, share in the comments what have you been postponing that might not wait much longer? What would acting immediately require? Time doesn't negotiate, but you still can. While time remains,